Hello, YouTubers. Reloading Bench back with you yet again. And for those astute aficionados of old gear, you'll probably recognize what this is from. And today was an interesting day. I thought my table saw days were behind me. So anyone who's watched the channel for a period of time probably recalls that going on 2 years now, I did the reconditioning of the 1977 Craftsman 113. And that had been a very successful table saw for me. No complaints, none whatsoever. The difference being I came across locally, and it just so happened last year was what I would call Craftsman 100 year. I restored and sold 3 of them, and then I restored and kept 1, and you saw that potentially if you saw the video. That was the, I called it the saw-off or bake-off, I don't remember what it was actually called, comparing the Craftsman 100, the finished restored Craftsman 100, to the 1977, so the 1960 Craftsman 100 to the 1977, both being model 113s, model 113s. That being said, I think the 113, especially the Craftsman 100, is the most beautiful, ornate, contractor-style table saw. But there is a dream saw in the back of my mind that I've always wanted, whether that's a restoration, reconditioning, or something in between. There is a saw in between, and that is the Delta Unisaw. And I'm not talking about a new one. I'm talking about anything from the 40s, 50s, 60s, nothing beyond that, because of how they were made. And there's a degree of not ornateness at all. It's basically a box. It's very different than the Craftsman. The Craftsman, the arbor is mounted to the actual table, and that's where some cabinet makers or people who prefer the Unisaw will take a difference, because they'll say the arbor mounted to the table is not precise enough. It's not a cabinet maker saw. Well, I don't make cabinets, so that doesn't matter to me. But the floor standing unit, the floor standing cabinet, the heavy cast table with the wings, the giant fence system, front and rear. It's just a cool old machine. There's only 2 problems. 1, they don't come up locally often. And 2, they're always expensive as get out. And we're talking, old gear. If the Craftsman 100 is old, the Unisaws that I would consider are even older. So I'm on Marketplace off and on. And it's funny because I've been trying to clear out the garage, make room for the mill, the mini mill, other stuff, the cabinet, the new rolling cabinet, and there's just not enough space. So I decided to part with the 1977 version. I put that up for sale and have been trying to sell it. People out of state are like, oh, I wish you were, closer. I'd love to have this. I'm like, oh, unfortunately, people in my state can't appreciate a piece of equipment that will last multiple lifetimes. But, it is what it is. I'm sure when the price gets lowered low enough, somebody will take it. And it's a shame to have to give it away. But whatever, we'll see how that goes. But in any case, I'm on Facebook Marketplace, and I'm just scrolling. And I wasn't even searching. I was kind of just scrolling, when it pops up for recommendations. And the saw that I'm going to pop up on screen showed up. And the price was awesome. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this doesn't really look like it needs to be restored. It could be cleaned, repainted. But, from a restoration perspective, it wasn't trashed and beat up and rusty. So at least from the picture. But what I noticed on the picture was, wow, those cables look really thick. Those power cables look really thick, like not 110 thick. And the challenge with some Unisaws are, it depends on the motor. And the last thing you want to do is buy a Unisaw and you can't power it up because of your particular power limitations. And I don't have, I'm not going to support high voltage, the 230 high voltage. I would be a 110 user. So some of the Unisaw motors are, you know, three-phase, and some of them are single-phase, switchable between 115 and 230. And so I reached out because this particular seller was relatively local, about an hour's drive in no traffic. And I was kind of, in the back of my mind, I was kind of hoping it was a three-phase that I couldn't touch. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to worry about it because trying to get a motor for that particular saw could be more expensive than the cost of the saw that he's selling. So he came back and said, yeah, it's running 230. And then for whatever reason, I said, you know, some of those older saws are switchable. Just depends on how you wire it. And could you check the label to see if it's switchable? So he sent me a picture that I'll show of the label. And sure enough, it's switchable between 115 and 230. So I then messaged him back to say, you know, hey, how do you want to do payment? He's like, first come, first serve, cash on hand. And I was like, okay, can I just give you a deposit? He's like, no, I've been down that path before with other stuff and people flake and, you know, so older guy, older than me. And I'm a boomer. So I'm going to say he's in his mid to, yeah, I'm just going to say mid 60s. And nice guy. You know, we're going back and forth. And, you know, what I've noticed on marketplaces, sometimes when you start communicating with someone, they just ghost. They disappear. And you're like, dude, you were right here. Why are you not answering now? And then you'll come back in a day and they're like, yeah, sold. Whatever. But we're going back and forth. And I'm like, well, what can I do? I can't come to see this because I need a truck to pick it up. And I won't have that till the weekend. So he's like, well, I'm leaving California on Wednesday morning. And so I responded back, you know, leaving California as in vacation or bye-bye California? And he said, no, just a vacation, be out for a few weeks. And then he said, you know what, I'll tell you what, you'll be the first one I reach out to when I get back. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Because I had offered, I said, how about I drive over, you know, in the next day or so before you leave and pay for the saw and take a bunch of stuff. And I did that for two reasons. One, because, you know, once I pay him, he has peace of mind that, hey, I got my money. And two, if I take enough of the pieces, it would cost somebody more to find these pieces to finish the saw than what the saw is worth or what he's charging for the saw. And again, everybody's different. So, and he seemed like a straight stand-up guy, straight shooter. So he messaged me back later in the evening and said, you know what, I'm tired of dealing with the people, because I'm guessing he's getting all kind of whatever. Craigslist is, Facebook is, marketplace is just like Craigslist, a bunch of interesting folks. So he said, tell you what, if you want to come over tomorrow and pay for the saw and pick up a bunch of the pieces, I'm fine with that. I'm like, I'll see you tomorrow. So that was today. So I have the whole table, took off the table, the three pieces, the two side wings and the main table, the front and rear round bars for the fence. Obviously this is the fence. And let me put this down. And I will interweave some of the videos. Video I took when I saw the saw at first and the first startup when I heard it. Oh, that's a beautiful hum.
Check this out.
Yeah, there's no
Minimal,
vibration.
minimal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I'll show you the serial number, or most of the serial number. This was, according to the serial number, this saw was made, these were the wings. I mean, look at the size of these bolts. This is for the fence. This was the blade guard, dado guard, push stick, which I don't know if I'll keep that, and a bunch of older blades that he was saying are good resharpenable blades. Looks like we have 100 and some odd. Okay, these are other blades for smaller saws. A hand circular saw. I don't know if that's a 10-inch. That's a interesting old design. I think this is a 9-inch. Let me get a tape measure. So this was stuff he was getting rid of, and I'm like, yep, I'll take it all. I'll take it all. Take it all off your hands. Yeah, that's a 9-inch blade. So it looks like we've got two 10-inchers. Okay, so let's put the 9s and the circular saw stuff, because I have those, and then the 10s. 42. Yeah, this is looks like with a little cleanup. These are still quite sharp. A little bit of cleanup, those will be great. And then these were the. Actually, I'll probably just leave that like that. And these were the bolts for the table. So, and once we pull the table off and put that in my trunk, you can see the amount of dust that particular saw had accumulated, because, you know, taking the table off is not something anybody's going to do on a regular or even semi-regular basis. So that table probably has not come off since it was first put in service. But what made this particular saw so special was, you know, somebody's always going to ask, just like with a pew pew, you know, are you the first owner? He said, no, but my father was. And I'm like, that is beyond cool. So his father was the original owner user of the saw, passed it down to his son. And like I said, his son's probably in his mid-60s or older. And I don't know what they're doing as a family, but his wife was saying, you know, his building days are over, building large wood stuff. I think she said deck building days are over. And I'm like, well, the provenance to find a Unisaw that is essentially a one owner, let me rephrase that, a one family saw. So it hasn't been bounced around from owner to owner and trashed from one owner to another, you know, somebody repainting it and getting it all kind of janky. Because again, this thing is not in need of restoration. Cleaning, yes. A good cleaning. So I might not do any restoration. I might just do a deep clean, kind of like the 1977 version. But in any case, when I check the serial number says it's from 1950. But when you look at the serial number label, it also has Rockwell. Well, Rockwell didn't actually purchase officially, and maybe this is just ink, you know, on the numbers, Delta until 1951, if I'm not mistaken. So this would have been what I would call transition, where they just slapped that serial number on, because later you'll see, you know, different labels on the left side of the machines, as well as on the switch plate, that identify it as a Rockwell Delta or Delta Rockwell, as opposed to just a Delta. So this would be a transition saw of 1950, going into when Rockwell purchased Delta. So this saw is 74 years old. And, you know, I got to thinking, I'm like, wow, my dad was a teenager when this saw was put into commission. And here we are 74 years later. And now this saw belongs to me. So I will, obviously this will be a multi-part series, because I don't have the saw. I have parts of the saw. I have, 40% of it. And that motor is just a monster, that fully enclosed bullet motor, or egg or goose egg or whatever some people refer to it. Very, very cool old machine. And, the arbor is actually mounted to the frame of the cabinet as opposed to on the table. So that's why the table is removable and you don't have any other pieces like the arbor or the actual saw as you would in a Craftsman 100. So the cool factor for me is off the map. So I am going to say that between the Craftsman 100, the gold, champagne, I think it's called Power, what was it called? Power Bronze. The Power Bronze Craftsman 100 is one of the most beautiful ornate table saws, contractor saws, period. The Unisaw, in my opinion, from the 40s, 50s, and some of the 60s, are just amazing cabinet saws. Cabinet in terms of cabinet making from an accuracy and precision, as well as cabinet in terms of the form factor of the actual machine. So the 1977 has to go in order to make room. Do I need 2 table saws? No, I do not. Is there just an amazing level of satisfaction and joy to pick up a Unisaw? You bet. You absolutely bet, because again, that was one of those, for me, Unobtanium, because it has to be local. And the stuff that I've seen local has been, left out in the rain for 10 years, just really trashed, or ridiculously expensive that, I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars on a 70-year-old saw, because it isn't needed. But to spend a few hundred on a 70-year-old saw, 70-plus-year-old saw that's in phenomenal condition, again, as you'll see or have seen between the pictures and or the video segments. And then I also caught audio of it starting up for me. Just an amazing table saw, absolutely amazing. So welcome to the channel for a Delta Unisaw made in 1950. So definitely more to come. Take care, folks.